Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Building World Peace, one human at a time. I'm excited to have you here today. I'm your host, Ling Lei. I'm a teacher, a guide, and a ritual master in an ancient lineage of King Solomon, the modern mystery school. And I'm super excited today to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Lucy Macarthur, who's here with us and is ready to share her joy. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Ling. Hi, everyone.
Lucy, could you introduce yourself and also tell us about how you got here to where you are today?
Sure. So I'm Lucy Macarthur, and how did I get here? I kind of began, I think, almost even from a child, like wanting to make the world a good place to be. I remember reading the book Miss Rumphius, and it was always talking about what is your gift to the world, or how are you going to make the world more beautiful. So I kind of started going in that direction, finding my way. And I started after high school, I went to a Waldorf school. I ended up taking a year and working at a place called Camphills, where you're working with people with different needs. I was working with children. And that year kind of taught me that everyone has their own skill set, but then working with people who have different abilities than you do and being able to collaborate together, it just felt like everyone has their piece to give. And I learned so much from so many different people. And so that kind of stayed with me once I then went to college, was that there's this idea of community, and that there's so much that we can learn from each other. And I went to university because I wanted to learn something that I could then give back to the community. But I started off by doing fine art, and just because I needed something to do with my hands and to kind of express all the things that I was learning. So that was my way of, having things come in and then digesting what was coming in for me. And then language. So I was studying German because I wanted to connect with my family, because my family is German, and to kind of understand a different way of thinking. I found that when I spoke in another language or thought in another language, I noticed how my thought patterns changed, or how I thought about something changed, or how I expressed a thought was very different when you're speaking another language. So that really opened up my mind to, throughout the world, like these different values that are imbued in how we communicate. And then when I left school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do from there. I worked with children with different needs. I worked in ABA. I then wanted to become a Waldorf school teacher. So I did that for a few years. And that was really helpful for me to understand human development kind of from a scientific, spiritual lens, and understand my own development. But I felt like there was like something that I needed to apply. I'm a very practical person. So when I was even in my teacher training, we were learning about things like, okay, our higher selves and how to be balanced in a classroom. But there was no really roadmap of like how to meet your higher self. And there weren't a lot of like day-to-day practical applications. There were some, and they were helpful, and I used them, and they were nice, but there wasn't like as much of a clearly defined path of how to progress. Because when I went into teaching, I went into it because I saw a lot of amazing teachers and really amazing human beings, and I was like, okay, this is a path for people who are really striving to uphold themselves to a higher standard. So that was why I got into it. But then I got to a place where I was like, there's more to this than I am able to find right now. And that was when I met Caitlin Boucher, and she was in my teacher training. And she introduced me into the Modern Mystery School in Boston in 2018. And that was a completely mind changing, like world changing, like my whole life changing experience for me. And I just started with a life activation, a full spirit activation, and then Empower Thyself, I think within a month. And after that, I felt like able to go through the world differently, and not to go through the world as much as I had been kind of on the defensive I had kind of like lost my trust in the world at that point. So being able to come back and start to develop a relationship with myself and beginning to trust myself, and then from that to be able to trust the world a little bit more was really amazing. So since that time, I've moved back to California. I had been teaching at a Waldorf school. And then I realized during the pandemic that I was working mostly with adults, mostly with parents, and that they needed a lot of support. And from that, I then, with Caitlin, we began kind of a course for specifically for parents who are transitioning into taking more ownership over their children's education, and kind of like a crash course in Waldorf homeschooling. But even through that experience, I realized that the most important work is the work that we do on ourselves. And when we as adults take responsibility for ourselves and what we're supposed to be doing and our day to day, it's a trickle down effect. So it benefits children who I'm very I'm wanting to create the best world for everyone, especially children, but that it is a trickle down effect. So if you're taking that ownership as an adult, that will automatically impact all of the people in your life. So it's become more and more clear to me that the mystery school work is the most effective in creating like kind of this beauty and partnership with other people. And it's just kind of been coming down to that point of connection. But I also now have started to have a like I do a lot of painting. This is these are my paintings in different spaces, and that's been really great to start to show people how to create beauty in their home, in their lives, in a physical sense, because sometimes that's easier to see. But it is like a reflection, you know. So if you're surrounded by beauty, you have that within yourself, and vice versa. So that's been another piece for me as I've been working with the mystery school, is developing that connection and starting to do workshops with people on what color means and how that affects us, and just starting to be aware of our environment, which is the very tipping point, I think, with the mystery school. Is you're just heightening all of your awareness, but it is nice in a different way for people who aren't in the school yet to kind of see, okay, what I'm surrounded by does have an impact, and I also have a say in what is around me. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now.
Wow. I loved hearing your story. There was a lot of things that I haven't heard of before. So that's cool. Why it's curious that I think you said after high school you worked at a Waldorf school, right? For a little bit before college.
At a Camphill, and it did have a Waldorf school on it. So Camphill is different than Waldorf schools, but it was created by Carl Koenig, and he was really interested in working with children who had like different needs in a setting that was truly helpful for them. Yeah, so that was a Camphill, and that was a really profound experience for me the entire year. And something that actually kind of correlates to the mystery school is when I was working with children, and some of them would come in and they would be like really upset or really on a high, like very, like the energy was just so high. And then what I realized from that was that if I responded with complete calm, with complete certainty, that they would come to calm and certainty. And that was like my biggest revelation of like, oh, I can either respond to the world or I can react to what's happening. And that was really, when I understood that, it was very powerful in me coming into how I interacted with everyone. But I felt like I learned a lot of deep life lessons there. Yeah.
Yeah, that in the Mister School we have this term called it being on the middle pillar, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
instead of being on the two sides of the pendulum, being in the middle, where I mean you can still oscillate, you can still move, but you don't get move or you don't react as fast, as different or as dramatically as you would have if you had not learned to be on the middle pillar. the name of this interview series is called Building
Mhm.
World Peace.
Mhm.
And as you know, the Mission School, our mission is to help build world peace. And each of us has a unique piece, in that huge mission, because it's a huge mission, and it does not get accomplished by just any one person. So Lucy, I'm curious, what does world peace means to you? What does it look like to you?
World peace to me looks like kind of like a party. But I think more so it's just a connection to other people. It's really being able to collaborate in a way where we just see each other as our best selves and we just are our best selves. That's what world peace looks like to me. Um, yeah. And going back to Camp Hill, I remember meeting someone there. He was an older man who had worked at this Camp Hill for years and years. And every person he talked to, he was so happy to talk to them. Didn't matter who they were, anyone. And some people I was like, I don't know if I want to talk to them. And he was, and being around him just made you feel so light and loved. And that stayed with me as I'm like, oh, I can't wait till I get to the point where I can just be so enjoy to be with other humans. Um, and have that connection and see them for their best self and have that be in absolute integrity. So that's still something that I'm striving for, but that's what it looks like to me is for us to be together, because it really is about connection more than anything else, I think. But also like when we have connection to ourself and that coming from that place, I think it allows us to really see other people more clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, like everyone has a unique piece in building world peace, right? So I love asking this question to people because everyone's gonna talk about world peace and what it looks like
Mhm.
in their own vision, right? And all of those visions make up the one big vision of world peace. So that's really cool. I love that you have put so much emphasis in connection and also that joy of being connected with other people and being with others. How how do you, if you could like reflect back, how have you been taking part in building that kind of community or building that kind of world around you with full of joy and authentic connections?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going back down memory lane. When I was in Camp Hill, I felt this really, I had that a lot where there were so many people ready to connect, and I felt like I was given the space to see people and appreciate what people can do, which is like pretty incredible a lot of the time. And I felt like when I went to college, I started to see things more critically. And that was like something that I also put out where I just saw things in a really critical lens. And I was always surprised by I'm like, I'd be like, bam, 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 like, and then I'd be surprised when like that would be kind of people would be like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? So I definitely didn't create that. I think even in graduate school, I was wanting to break everything down. I was wanting to see like whatever speck of if something wasn't right, I was just going to perseverate on that rather than seeing the beauty of everything. Um, so I felt like when I came to the mystery school and started to um, begin to see the good in myself, that again began to radiate out, and I started to have meaningful connections with other people, and I was able just to be happy to see people. Like I wasn't as afraid. I wasn't on the defensive. I didn't feel like everything was just coming at me all the time. And also, I think the difference is when you step into your own strength, and not just like strength, but your true strength. Um, things are different. The world is different, and it is, in a sense, easier to be with other humans. But it's been interesting in the past couple of months because I've been traveling a lot, and I've been doing like some painting workshops with other people, and it has been kind of a community event. And I've now been doing teaching a lot of sacred geometry classes and sanctuary meditation, and that's actually been my theme for the next couple of months, is creating community. And we're in Kabbalah right now. That's one of my Kabbalah goals, is to create community, because it's a thing that I love the most. When I think about it, I just went dancing last night and I got to see all of the people we go dancing with, and it was just so joyous and so filled with like happiness and love. And just, I was like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to see people and to be excited to be around them. So I'm just excited to also now with the mystery school bring people into community where they can be with each other, but also that they have the tools to make their world even better and to support themselves in whatever it is in their unique piece of what they need to bring, that they have the tools to and the foundation to really make that a reality.
Ah, I see, I see. So your theme is community. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't usually plan this in advance, right? But I've noticed in the interviews that I filmed is that through the course of 20, 30 minutes of talking, there's always a theme coming out. And
Hmm.
yeah, I love it for you as community. And I can totally, so Lucy, you're a teacher now in a certified teacher with a modern mystery school, right?
Hmm.
So there are a few classes we both can teach, including you mentioned sanctuary meditation and sacred geometry and astral travel too. It's a hot, it's a hot class. Um, and I can totally see you building a community up there in Sacramento. And I'm excited that there will be a community up there.
Yeah, I am going to be teaching teachers how to do sacred geometry and sanctuary meditation in a couple of weeks in Sacramento. So I'm really excited to go back to a place where I was a teacher and to then, work with people from that community.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, teachers have so much, how to say that, like they hold so much power, the power to create change. And
Hmm.
so if they themselves become more empowered and become more joyful, then of course, like you said earlier, that power, that strength and that joy are going to trickle down to the kids. So
It's just even
those
amplified. Yeah.
yeah, those kids are just gonna grow up to be like, I don't know, superhuman. They're gonna grow up to be super loving and joyful. I'm excited. Yeah, and that's we do share the same mission. Like I think even on my website I said, I want to create a world where all children are loved and are protected, right? And that's why I'm working with adults, because they are the future, um, taking care of these kids, which is
Yeah.
something you said. Oh, I love it. And Lucy, one of the things that I think a lot of us in MMS are aware of is that if you want to build world peace, you have to have peace within you and also around you, right? Which I know is why you're talking about building a community of peace, because um, that is the act of creating peace in the world around you. And then if there are you, there are me, there are more and more people who will choose to build communities with like of peace within sorry among them, then that's how world peace can happen. What are some of the things that you would want to maybe some of the wisdom that you want to impart on those who are looking to build communities in this way?
What comes to mind is a story. Again, this was a story I told in first grade, and you might know it, but it's the story of stone soup. And there once was a person who didn't have anything to eat, and the village was a little bit hungry, but they had a pot in the village square, and they put some water into the pot and lit a fire, and they put in a stone. And they called out to everyone and they said, I'm making stone stew. And each person came and they brought one thing, And one person brought a carrot, one person brought celery, one person brought some greens, some stew, and it became the most delicious stone soup. But it started with one person who had this idea and let other people know what was happening. And other people rose to that and were able to contribute their piece. And then everyone was able to enjoy that together. So we all have different skill sets and gifts. And when we take the step of making things come into action and letting people know what we're doing, then we give them the opportunity to help. Like you can't achieve anything solely by yourself, but one person can be the spark that lights everyone together to make what we need to have happen. I keep on talking about Legally Blonde. I don't know why. but
Apparently, it's the 20th anniversary of that movie. I know why
Oh,
now.
okay.
Because everyone
That's
tells me
why
about it, and I figure
it's
out.
coming through. But I just watched the first and second one, and the second one I really loved so much, because it talks about kind of the bureaucracy of Washington and going in, all these people who came to Washington with hope, but they've just become really kind of entrenched in the system. The system has kind of just incorporated them in like a cog. And then you have one person come in who is so driven and so clear on her mission and so inspiring that she actually creates what she came to create. And the system does not incorporate her. She reminds the system really what its true purpose is. And it's people. It's not the cogs of the machine. We're all human. We all have humanity. And there's a line where they're like, we forgot that one person could make a difference. And it's true. And if you can be that one person, then everyone can be that one person. But it takes a lot of courage for that first step. But if there's something that you know you can do, or maybe something you don't even know if you can do it, but you just want it to be true, you can make it true if you have that desire. So just begin and begin again. And if you have roadblocks, like work through them. And what I love about that movie in particular is she knows how to do it her own way. So don't let anyone tell you that you have to go a certain way to make it true. You don't always have to follow what the path is, but you know how you can get there eventually. So that's kind of my piece on community. That's what I'm thinking of when I'm building community now.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, in the world where everybody points a finger out there, remember that you can choose to be that person to step up to make the change that you want to see. And then it may be very hard, it may be easy, you may get a lot of resistance, a lot of backlash, or you may get a lot of support right away. But eventually, it's the point is about doing the right things that is, I think, is true to your heart, right? Um, and just being the person that you truly want to be, whether or not other people approve of it. And
And
then
it's really easy to be a critic. And
very,
that's what
yeah,
I noticed about myself too, is for so long, I was like,
yep,
ugh, like just,
yeah,
that's all I
everything's
was
wrong.
doing. No, but then it's like that classic, like the one finger, the three fingers back, like it's pointing at you. So it's been interesting. And it is kind of daunting to step out into the world to be seen, because most people are going to criticize you because they're at a point where they're critical, and you just have to be brave and know that what you're trying to create is so much more important than the criticism. And like when I think back, I'm like, I'm so glad the people I was criticizing persevered and like did
Yep.
what they were meant to do. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, I hope that the people who would be critical of me, like eventually would be like, oh, I'm glad you kept going despite what I said, because especially when your aim is true, like when you know that what you're doing is important, that kind of gives you the, I don't know, the resolve and the almost the ease of being able to push through it, because it's not really about you. It's
Yep.
about
Yeah.
something bigger than you.
Yeah, that's huge. It's that's true. It's building world peace, all your mission, like it's never about you. It's always about something bigger than you. And I think that's why and how any of us can, and any people in the past, person who've made differences in the past were able to persevere. It's because it's really not about us.
Yeah.
So we shared similar background in the sense that we definitely came from a more liberal and judgmental background.
Social
Like,
justice, yeah.
the whole world is going, is going into flame. Everything is
Yeah.
burning, everything's bad, and nothing is good enough. No one's good enough. Canceling everyone.
Yeah. Well,
um,
what I was realizing is I just, again, I don't know, I may be watching a lot of movies, but I just watched a movie called The Pursuit of Love, and it was talking about like the impending war and all of these things. And I just started to realize no matter what time period in history, there was always something looming. There's always something going on. There's always a battle. So you just have to decide, like, am I going to be ruled by fear or impending doom, or am I going to live and shine as brightly as I possibly can?
yeah, regardless of what's happening, for
Yeah.
sure. um and I think because, especially for you, for me too, because we came from that background. I do find that I do have and I'm still working on it, but I do have a lot of empathy and compassion for people who are criticizing, right, who are yeah, critical, because I know I was there, and I did that because I was in so much pain, and I didn't know, and I didn't know how to fix it, how to get better. And so all the pains got projected outward, into criticism or judgment. I didn't criticize, but mostly it was in here of like, oh,
But
judgment people.
I feel like with that too, most of the times when we're thinking about social justice, people are getting involved because they do care. You know what I mean? Like I definitely cared. I think you definitely cared too. You're like, this isn't just like
Sure,
we're
yeah, for
doing it
sure.
out of like hurt is one thing, but also love. You know, you're doing it out of love, out of care for another person, but it's twisted. You know,
Yeah.
it when you're coming like this doesn't make love a lot of the time. Like it just doesn't. If you want there to be more love, you have to actually love. And I actually, oh my gosh, this is reminding me of, I remember I was in a class, I don't know what I was oh, we were doing a play, and we were talking about different stereotypes of like who was cast as what. And I just remember being so upset with the people I was doing this play with, because I was like, they don't understand. um, they're limiting all of these things, and they're like going to be causing all of this harm. In my mind, that was what I was going through. And I remember the person who was directing the play, like I ended up talking to her, I was like in tears, I was so upset. I was just like everyone is just not being like open-minded or loving. And she was like, all we can do is plant the seed and move on. That's all you can do. And I remember being so angry, but also I knew it was true. And I think that's why I was so angry, because I was so used to like, I'm this is how the world should be, and it's going to be that way come like hell or high water,
Yeah.
and I'm going to make it that way.
Beat yourself into change.
Yeah, exactly. Or like beat other people up into like
Oh, yeah.
believing what I believe
Right.
is the
Right.
right thing, which is just one version of the right thing. And what she said was just like so foreign to my mindset of like, you can just, and also if you're speaking, like how you speak is very important as well. Like if I'm speaking like this is something really valuable to me, and I say it with all of that peace and knowing and trust and love, that's going to be planted very differently in someone's heart, rather than if I'm coming at them the freaking weapon being like, believe this or else, that's like basically a pitchfork. It's like a mob mentality. Like if you're not with us, like where you're going. Like and one, you can kind of see where one goes. Like it can have the exact same desire, but how you hold that creates very different streams. And
And different
yeah,
kinds of results. Well, different kinds of results, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
instead of win-win result, we probably will lead to win-lose results. or lose win, right? Depending on which side. And
Yeah.
yeah, if there's anyone who's gonna lose, and again, the same cycle is gonna keep happening.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I know that I'm learning to have a lot of compassion for for my past self and for people who are still angry and are still doing that way, because it's true. They do that because they care, and in a sense, it's probably the only thing they need to do, right? Like, which is why I really want, like, this is why I'm passionate about bringing this mystery school tools to others, because it's a way to let them know, hey, I love that you care, and just so you know, there are different ways to make change. Um, there are different way to create an impact, other than like anger or cruelty in some sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's completely different. It's the best possible outcome is to care deeply and be given the tools to bring that into reality. And when you're bringing into reality, you have to kind of understand what's real and what's not real. And a lot of times, I think people are angry about things that are mm, not completely true. They're true, but then they're skewed. And so I think then that the results of it are not so good. But when you kind of get to a place where you're a little bit more clear-eyed, like it's kind of it's a tool of discernment, like um, are you believing everything you hear? And do
Or,
you, do,
or
do
do
you
you
know?
are you believing? Are you only believing the thing you want to believe in? It's more like.
Yeah. And that was the funny thing, like for me, like I believed I was right in that instance where I was so angry. I was like, well, I'm right. And then like when I realized, I was like, oh no, like I actually have to change my approach. Like, I don't know if I'm really interested in that. So it's been interesting. But when you do come from things where you're taking the time to really understand what you're talking about, you sometimes say a lot less and you do a lot more.
Whew. All right, we can talk about this forever. I didn't intend for I don't think we intended for this to become like a small conversation on social justice. Uh,
Sorry.
no, there's nothing to apologize for. I just thought it's interesting that we end up there still.
Yeah.
um, well, Lucy, thank you so much for spending time with us. I have two last questions for you. The first thing is, what are some words of wisdom that you have for those who are looking to create long lasting changes in the world but may feel a little bit stuck?
What I would say is sometimes you have to do the most uncomfortable thing to be what you need to be. And if you're feeling stuck, um, the best way to get out of it is to do something new, to try something that you haven't tried before. And for example, I have someone in my life who was stuck at a job that they didn't like. And I was like, well, you can find another one that works for you better rather than having to change it. Why don't you just change what you think you should be doing a little bit? And they ended up getting a job that they love much more. They have complete flexibility. Um, they're making twice as much. And it's just because they thought, okay, this isn't working for me anymore. And I actually deserve more. I think it's starting to see and love yourself. And in that love and care, you start to see how you're treating yourself and what positions you're putting yourself in. And if you're not being treated well in whatever context, you can choose a different one. And I think you need to remember how much power you actually have, because it's really easy to buy into being very small. And I have had that for so long in my life. I really was very small. And it's been really really amazing to see how much you can achieve if you kind of live by that principle of your own self-worth and how you see yourself. Other people will start to see you that way too, and you'll be able to more easily manifest what you want to manifest.
Cool. And try something new, like Lucy said. Some of the things that are maybe new to you, I would suggest is to get a life activation and or the empower thyself initiation. And I think especially empower thyself is super duper um like important and super helpful for those who want to make a big change in the world, right? It's yeah, I mean we can talk more about that at some point, but I would say empower thyself is like the important toolkit for the wannabe change makers. Wannabe
Yeah, it's the starter kit.
starter kit, yeah.
Yeah.
So Lucy, for whoever is watching or listening to this and they just absolutely love you, or they're more curious about the classes that you offer, the paintings that you do, or and also the healings and the sessions that you offer, how can they get in touch with you?
For all of my painting work and painting workshops, you can find me at lucylazur.com or lucylazur on Instagram. And for all of my healing work and modern mystery school classes, you can find me at the Center for Integrated Light.
Oh, and I have all those information on the videos as well as in the description box. So
Great.
whoever wants to get in touch with her, and you're in Sacramento, right?
I am
Sacramento,
in Sacramento.
California.
Yes. Build in
Cool.
Sacramento.
Yeah, that is so cool. I'm excited. I'm excited for you, and maybe we can all like chip in and go help there. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, come. Come one, come all.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Always,
Thank you so
always
much for
fun
doing
to talk to
this.
you.
Thank you so much for
Bye.
doing this.